All right. Also, you're also an EFL learner, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So she's our first speaker. You're not taking the podium. You're presenting from down there. Okay. So let's hear from flipped classrooms, Bloom's taxonomy, and the role of front loading for the unit also.
Hello. Everybody awake? I'm not. I'm conferenced out, are you? It's that low point of the day. You know, I got my first quadruple shot of espresso today. You know, we'll see if it works. So anyway, you guys are all here talking, interested in EFL and the cross-section of technology, right? Are you all teaching EFL in this room? Okay, good. So I am an EFL product from Germany, but now I'm training teachers in the United States. And I also train teachers around the world in different countries. And just to give you one short background, I have background in German, French, and English as a second language, foreign language. So I come from a multidisciplinary background. And now I'm mostly conducting ESL training. Of course, we all know the big difference, right, in pedagogy and so forth. So I want to talk a little bit about some practical stuff that we can do in our classrooms to help our EFLs, and it's want to give you some background on why to do it and how to do it. And I have been presenting a session on brain research, particularly to EFL reading. And it's available on webcasting, recorded sessions, which gives you more of the background of the theory of why to do all this stuff, okay? If you're interested in plugging that in. So we're talking more about practical stuff. All right, so what I wanted to focus about today is about the topic of front loading. Front loading. Who of you has heard this word before? Front loading? When we are introducing new topics to our students, it really is of great benefit to front load heavily, right, for many different reasons. So who of you, I'm curious, who of you teaches content in English? Content language in English? 2, 3? Like disciplines, academic disciplines in English, or are you teaching it mostly for the purpose of teaching the language? Purpose of teaching the language. You teach content. Yes. So my presentation applies to all of these areas, you know, but it's particularly useful if you teach content and you have a large number of vocabulary where students need to immediately perform academic tasks with the content, right? So just an FYI. So we know that front-loading and flipped classroom learning increases student learning and achievement academic performance, particularly because it gives us time in the classroom for using the class time for academic tasks higher on Bloom's taxonomy, if they already learn the basic stuff before they come to the classroom. So there are lots of different theories, and later on when we get the presentations, you can go over this in detail, so I provide this to you, but we don't need to read the slides. There was significant achievement, improvement amongst the flipped learning classrooms. So I want to draw your attention very much to Bloom's taxonomy. And this is a modified Bloom's taxonomy, which puts the higher 3 levels actually on the same level, because new research has shown that they're interchangeable now. And if you're really interested in Bloom's taxonomy, they have a lot of stuff on Google where you can find aligned Bloom's taxonomy levels with objectives for the classroom, with action verbs for your objectives, and with activities and how to create these activities in your classroom already pre-prepared, you know, which are really, really cool. So many of you remember the times when in your classrooms, and I'm a product of this EFL culture, spend your time in the classroom with tasks around remembering and understanding. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay, so you're introducing your words and you're drilling, and we're still in this mindset today, you know, even though we know better. And of course, what we're really wanting to focus on is on applying and evaluating and synthesizing all these things. And unfortunately, we still don't make that leap. And so I try to bring Bloom's taxonomy in almost every session I do, challenge you to think about purposefully how you scaffold your instruction, to get the most mileage out of your instructional time. And because my time was greatly wasted in language studies. I knew when it was my answer to give in the closed text, I counted it out and I could kick back the rest of the time, right? Familiar? Yeah. Okay, so we need to create lesson plans and objectives that are clearly measurable and observable. Okay, we all can agree on that. But do they actually result in the learning and retention of the material that we want to do? Let's look at the flipped classroom model a little bit more. Flipped classrooms are not entirely, everything is flipped and the students are only doing online activities and nobody's doing anything on paper and pencil. That's not what it is. Flipping the classroom means that students front load stuff at home that you create. You can do little videos, little podcasts, little screencasts for the students. You have your own YouTube channel. And then they can study the material at home, and even students in low technology environments have access to handheld devices many times and have access to those channels. Then you can use your class time for a deeper understanding of the concepts and applying them, right? That's why you can have the communicative tasks in your classroom. And students can receive your support, and you can see where they're not performing well when they're doing the activities. So instead of the old model where you instruct, the student take notes, the student are drilling, and that doesn't yield the same result. So again, this changes the role of the teacher, the role of the student, and the role of the material greatly, in that the role of the teacher now is the one of a guide. You create the conditions in which your students are performing. But the students can take it by themselves in communicative activities and collaboration activities. And also we can tap more into constructivist learning procedures where students construct knowledge themselves instead of me telling them what they should retain. Because we know that input does not equate intake. They need to create their own intake, right? And we cannot just tell them something. So materials are provided prior to the lesson. Prior to the lesson, they get the materials they need. And as far as students in other countries and other cultures, or ESL students here, oftentimes they also help to build background knowledge for the students, which they need to have to plug in the content. So we're looking at flipped learning as a pedagogical approach, as opposed to be methods. Methods are a prescribed way of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? An approach is where we pick the right activities to implement to reach my goal in the classroom. And we create individual learning spaces that are dynamic, interactive, and result in construction of knowledge, right? So we need to have a very flexible environment where we give students choices how they be interactive and communicative. And you can only do that at higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy when you don't engage in remembering and explaining the most basic stuff. There's nothing to be discussed about a grammar rule, right? ED makes a past tense. What can you discuss about that? Nothing. So why not do that at home and give them all the rules at home and use the class time in pointing out irregular verbs instead? And let them discover that by themselves how they're different, right? That's much more effective because the students are then using metacognitive strategies that help them remember the content. So the teachers then can also be more flexible in addressing student needs because they can walk through the classroom and see how students are performing with the stuff they should have learned before, which gives me as a teacher the ability to see on time, in real time, how well my students are doing. I don't have to wait for a paper and pencil test because then it's already too late. I cannot reteach anymore, right? Do you agree? When you get your results back, and do you know what the cutoff is about how many students in the classroom should perform well before you need to reteach for sure? What's the number? percentage. About 75%. If you have 75% of the students performing according to your expectations, you don't need to reteach. But if it's less, you do. So you can only see that when you see the students applying this stuff, right? Teachers don't need to be in the center of the attention. The learning process is centered on the students. They can explore, and this is particularly crucial in language classrooms where our goal is to communicate, right? Communication should be unpredictable and should be student-driven. Of course, and the students have different interests than we have too, right, as teachers. So we know that. Students need to have a role where they help the students to get the conceptual knowledge. They give them the tools and the rules and the content, but the students need to apply it then and make it their own. By doing that, by doing the flipped classroom, our role as educators is highly different in a professional sense, because we need to really think about where is this on Bloom's taxonomy, what strategies am I using, what activities am I using, what level is this tapping into, and it makes us be a lot more professional about our lesson plans. And if you're like me, when I was a teacher in the classroom for a while, lesson planning is like, how can I get out of it? Right? Yeah. So nobody's observing me, maybe I don't need to do a lesson plan, you know? And we all know it's not right, but we all do it. And so if you do the flipped classroom, it kind of offsets that, because each lesson is different, because the students are running the show, right? And it's a whole different environment. So where do you start with your flipped classroom? First of all, my practical solution is start with one topic. One topic that you teach all the time, that you're really familiar with, that you have some resources for, and find some real good content-based resources for your learners, and make sure that you have incentives for your students to do the work, right? They can just not say, oh, I just don't do my homework, because they cannot participate in the lesson and everything falls flat. And you know, I don't know, who of you is in the United States here? Just a few. My daughter is schooled here in high school, right? And since middle school, she has had almost entirely flipped classrooms. And their teachers said, huh, I'm in luck. I don't need to do lesson plans anymore. I give them all the stuff at home, and then in school they do homework. That's what they understood flipped to me. You know, today the first teachers are changing that to actually creating flipped classrooms. But it's not, it should not be a homework flip that you do homework in the classroom. Everybody's sitting side by side and writing. That's not the point. So they need to do activities in the classroom. They are interactive and collaborative. So out of class, the students prepare the content. ED makes the past tense out of a verb. You know, how do you conjugate? All these things, we can study that at home, drill that at home, and you can also add like little assessments to it for the students, so you know before they come if they have mastered everything. In class, you apply the concepts, and after class you test them, right? Summative or in other words. So the benefits are that students can learn in their own speed, in their own groups, right? Collaboratively, you can differentiate for the students. You know if they master the concepts because you can observe the learning and application. And it's really cool for students that are slower, that need more time, and we all know who they are, that need to see things 10 times instead of 2 times, and they can rewind and redo and redo, and nobody sees the embarrassment of not being able to perform it right away. No, it's really wonderful. Students have much more ownership of their learning. There's so many resources available, but my favorite one is creating audio and visual and screencast resources for the students at home. If you have never done it, it's so super easy. You can learn this in 5 minutes. If you use a phone and you can take pictures, if you use a phone and you make videos, you can do this. Trust me. And you can upload stuff right away, and you can give students access to it, and they get a kick out of their teachers. My daughter and their friends they get a kick out of it, seeing their teacher at home in their living room or something. Oh, look, she has a picture on the wall, and they're so excited about this, the kids are. Here's another form of approaching the Bloom's taxonomy. And here's a revised one that shows you what kind of topics and objectives would go with each level, right? And there are like a million of those online that you can pull up, and there's particularly one for each thing that you're teaching. They're also linked to electronic or digital activities and platforms, and you can find the right tools already aligned to the Bloom's taxonomy levels. You just have to do a little quick Google search. You can do that while you're sitting right now here. Do a search on a certain objective that you're teaching in your English lesson on Bloom's taxonomy level that you pick and see what you find. So these are some tools that can be used in your classroom. And I hate to teach you particular tools in sessions because they change every day, right? I mean, you find something that you like, and the next day 10 more of this kind are out there, you know. So I have a blog on which every day I update the latest technology that comes out aligned to the activities that you can look in the categories what you want to achieve. So you're going to have a reference later to my blog, and you can go in there and look for things that you want to do, and then you find the latest tool when you go backwards. So these are some activities, some platforms that you can use. And so where do you start? You need to absolutely have objectives that are actually measurable. You have all learned that in your teacher training already, in your training, but sometimes we fall short of that. Would you agree? You know, students will understand. Well, how do you measure that? Students will be able to do 5 examples of X, Y, Z. We can observe that, right? So pick some example and verbs, keywords, and technologies that would match up with the stuff that you're teaching, and start with a level of remembering on the lowest level of Bloom's taxonomy for recall and retrieving information. That's, again, our grammar topics and our vocabulary. And again, when you write your objectives, you can use these kind of terms, right? Here. And I have all different levels here, so I don't need to read this to you. You can look at this later for our recording of the session. Then here are preset tables where you can fill this out for yourself, you know, with examples on what they are. And I think these are great for our language classes, don't you think? Classify, list, outline, explain, estimate, give an example. So what kind of tools can you use? You can self-record videos, and they don't need to be fancy. They can be 5 minutes short, 3 minutes short. They don't need to be any fancy operations. You don't even have to put on special makeup for that. And you can use your phone, upload it on YouTube or on learning platforms, and self-recorded podcasts for your students. I've rarely met a student that does not have a handheld device. Would you agree? I mean, they have access to those technologies. Screencasts, Screencastify, or many other platforms like that. Make a screenshot and walk students through an example of doing something on the screen, and make a short little video of, like, here's the verb stem, and you can add your ED to it, and then it makes it past tense, and you can show this to them as you're doing it on screencasting. You can have self-created documents or polls and quizzes, and these are all things that you can give them at home, and they're so super easy to make, right? Here are other collaborative spaces, because then once the students have learned the material at home, they need to apply it in the class. And you can use online platforms in your classroom in web-enhanced activities where students can create digital records of their learning that you can review later at home or during class in real time. So here are some examples of that. And I also encourage very strongly to give students opportunity to collaborate at home as they're preparing for the class activities. And students are really good with that. They use all kinds of collaboration social networks, but they can also use Skype, which is for old people, you know. But they have stuff that they use these days. So again, here are other examples for the different levels. Again, with other tools, and these are assessment tools I use for the classrooms. If you want to take a picture or later on look at the presentation and the tools. And again, I gave you a lot of examples here, so you can look at them later. Use project-based learning where students actually create something and do something in the classroom where they can collaborate with one another. And use web-enhanced materials in the classroom using platforms. And make sure that your activities are also doubling up as formative assessments that give you information if students have learned the stuff, right? So, I hope that in my very short presentation I gave you kind of an idea to make you interested in, if you not already are, trying this out. Start with one activity, one topic. Build a little bit of material. It's like when you started teaching in the first place, right? We started with one thing and added to it over time. And now we're taking it a different level. And then expand, you know, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And I think that your students' outcome will show you that they will perform on a much higher level. Because you can, in class, actually apply, synthesize, and do all higher level activities that our language students need to do in order to navigate the new language. Because I don't know about you, but I was drilled in dialogues that we repeated so many times, and when I came to the country, nobody knew the dialogue. Remember? So, with that, you know, I'm done with my session. I want to take questions for 5 minutes, yeah? Anybody has any
questions at the end?
But I have 5 minutes.
You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I can take questions if you have any or comments. Yes.
I was wondering how you get the students used to the classroom. Like if they're really, it's more natural for them to do the traditional. How you get them used to it.
I would say that the opposite is true when students have grown up digitally since birth. It's being exposed to the digital world, and they define their own personhood more in virtual space than in real life, at least the same way. Where I think of myself as being a real person, and my daughter thinks of herself as half online person. You know, they create their personality online, their reputation online, their socialization online. And they can sit in the same room with their friends and then they text each other. Would you agree? Okay. So it is not unnatural for the kids to do the coursework like that. In fact, I would argue just the opposite is the case when they do all this virtual stuff all the time, that using paper and pencil traditional lecture approach to them is bewildering. You know, so I think you'll find once the students have know where you're going with this and you feel comfortable with it as a teacher, then they feel much more comfortable with using social media and web-enhanced tools. Yeah.
I guess what I meant was like traditional. I grew up in the traditional space, so that's what I'm used to.
Of teaching, like instructing, teaching.
Oh, as a student, I'm still a student here. I mean, how, from a student's perspective, if I'm used to a traditional sense, how do you get the student used to it?
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant, sorry.
So now I understand she's referring to the fact the teacher lectures and the student learns, right? That is a more normal experience for students. I would agree to that. I think once the students learn, have experienced the power of collaborative activities, but you need to buy into this too as a teacher. You cannot just tell them do this, but I don't really know if it works. But if you really believe in it as a teacher, and the students experience it in a very well-guided way, I think that it takes a very short time for them to flip, literally, to embrace that. But you need to train them to do that, you know? And they may rather kick back in real life and sit back and don't participate in class and wait until their turn comes, right? Instead of engaging all the time. But in the end, they know it's more interesting to engage all the time than to sit there and wait for your turn. So every time I've seen it applied, you know, the students really embrace it. But it's a good question, and especially from a student's perspective. Would you agree? Anybody else? What?
Oh, yes, your blog.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There. digitallearningandteaching.wordpress.com. So I have thousands of resources on there, and if you go in the categories, you can look for special things. And I also have an ESL blog there. It also has thousands of resources. So make use of it, you know, and see what applies to your situation. And you are as different in your own teaching situations as nature is, right? Any other comments or questions? And if you want to grab me afterwards to ask something or comment, I'll be sticking around, right? Thank you very much.
Are there any questions online? No questions. All right, thank you.
We have one question on here.
Oh, yeah?
Is technology the theme of this year's conference? It's talking to me, I'm sorry. Two things at the same time, so.
Is that a question or?
I think they're talking to me, the moderator, and
Yeah, if they're listening to call sections, it will be the theme, yes?
no.
It's the computer-assisted language learning session, and we could expect to talk about technology. Yes.
Thank you so much for clarifying for the web audience.
Thank you.
I have a big mouth.
All right. Okay, next we have José Antônio da Silva. José Antônio is an EFL teacher at Casa Thomas Jefferson, Brazil. He has a BA in psychology and a master's degree in TESOL. He's been teaching English for over 30 years, and he's been a volunteer at the VVO, the Electronic Village Online, since 2007. He was first a co-moderator, then a co-creator, and finally the EVO coordinator. He has presented in the Electronic Village since 2014 and became a member of the steering committee of the KHALID in 2015. He was co-coordinator of the Electronic Village sessions in 2016 and this year. Okay, he's also interested in using technology, of course, for teaching and learning. Okay.
So good afternoon, everyone. This next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you something that I did with my students, a project I worked on. Yeah, as teachers, if you teach, especially young learners, you know that they always like to play games, you know. And sometimes, games I think are a very important thing. And how do games come across in class? Many times you have a situation like this, you know. Okay, a student raises his or her hand to say, oh great, that student has a question, you know. I was explaining something and the student wants to ask me something. But sometimes we get disappointed because the question is, teacher, may I drink water? Or may I go to the restroom? Or this question, have game today? You know, and in my experience, I believe, I say for myself because I'm not a gamer, I'm not a teacher that is always playing games, always creating games, you know. And as a teacher, it's a challenge when a student asks that question, you know, have game today? And so if you're not a game player, that can be a problem for you. So how do you solve that problem, you know? How do you, because I think most teachers don't have these, are not very resourceful to have games to play every day. And so what can we do? Okay, let's see why playing games, why do students like games so much? You know, first, to help learning through the process of playing a game. Because when you play a game, if you have a pedagogical approach, if you have a reason for playing that game, okay, students learn while playing that game. That's why games, I think it's important to play games. It can be any kind of game. It can be a digital game, it can be a board game, it can be many kinds of games, all right? The next point, to provide engaging practice, because if you play a game, if they are in group, you know, they discuss, they try to find a solution, they engage in some kind of communication, there's some kind of exchange between those students, and they are going to learn something, to get something out of that, you know. To learn a variety of important skills, because there is collaboration, there is sportsmanship, there are many things that, playing games can teach students, skills that they can acquire while playing games. And seeing, and maybe it reflects also something that they know from real life when they play, because if you're playing a game, making a mistake is not a problem. But if you are in class and you don't take things as playing, as taking risks, making a mistake is a problem, all right? So this is an important skill to assimilate, to bring into class. And then to practice and learn from mistake, related to what I said before. Because if you play games with your students, you see when they make a mistake, they giggle, they try again and again and again. I mean, if they, like from game play in real life, you know they have to make a mistake to learn, to go to the next phase, you know. So the challenge for us teachers is bring that kind of situation to class, you know, to teaching. And that's what I think we try to do when we implement games in class. And then to focus well enough to learn better. Because, how do games work, you know? Because if you want to master a game, if you want to go to the next phase, you have to learn the rules. You have to know how to play the game. What are the rules governing that game? You know, what do you have to do so you excel and you master and you can go to the next phase? So in some minutes, I'm going to show you how, okay, you play a game with your students, all right? Okay, there are lots of games online, aren't there? You know, lately, because of development of Web 2.0, there are many games online. Okay, one is Kahoot. Okay, who is familiar with Kahoot? Very good. Okay, and there is another one called Quizzes. Right? Are you familiar? Anyone familiar with Quizzes? Yeah. Okay, so the first time I played this game in class, the students just loved it, you know. And Kahoot is an interactive game. I'm going to play one with you in some minutes just to show you. Not Kahoot, but Quizzes, because most people know Kahoot already, you know. I got familiar with Kahoot in 2014 in TESOL, okay, in Portland. And I started playing with my students. But when I started playing, what was the result? Lots of people asked, have game today, all right? So we will have a short game today. It's in Quizzes, okay? I want to use your mobile devices. You go to join.quizzes.com, all right? You just type the URL in your devices. Okay. Okay. Is everybody there? If you're there, raise your hand.
The Z's, if they're already inverted. One Z first and two Z's at the end.
Two Z's at the end. Oh,
Yeah, so one Z in the middle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is, okay, let me check here. Yeah, so I misspelled it, sorry, see? One Z in the middle only, all right? Are you there? So I'm going to play this game live, you know. You don't have to have an account to play it live, you know. Skip reports, you know. Just see. So you just enter the PIN number. And then you put a username. Okay, you create a nickname. All right, very good. So as you can see, I think this game is fun because it starts with the first step. You know, like the names, the usernames they create are really funny. You know, they put names of characters from cartoons, or they mix their names. You know. And it's really, this part is really interesting because, and then they choose their avatars, you know. And different from Kahoot, I think this game allows students to focus more individually as pairs or trios or, okay, any formation you have in your class. Different from Kahoot where you have the answers on the screen, they can focus more on their abilities, on their strengths, their weaknesses, you know. And I like the reward system. Can we start? Can I start? Is everybody in? Okay. Okay. So let's go. See, as you can see, you can follow, okay, the results, okay, in the screen. You can visualize all the questions. You know, if you scroll down, you know, all the questions are here. See, right? And you can see you have this progress bar that shows who is ahead. And as you're playing, you see shows the ranking, you know, like number 1, number 2. And many times the students would finish the game, but they are ranked number 1, but some students are still kind of working on the game. So it's different from Kahoot, they play on their own time, you know, and the order of questions is shuffled. It's wrong? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, because I mean, I curated this game. I said, I'm going to get a game on food, you know, from different countries, you know, that's what I found. One thing that, I mean, you find lots of games like this, so when you enter the platform, you can go to public quizzes and you can create your own, you know, okay? I think, yeah, okay. I'm going to end the game and move on because I just wanted to show you an experience, how it works, all right? Is it okay, or you wanna finish it?
Yay, Alyssa! Where's Alyssa?
Alyssa, who's Alyssa?
Yeah.
She laughed. Congratulations, you know everything about food, huh?
Mostly. That's when the mermaid one was really correct, though.
Yeah. It's about you. All right, people, I'm going to end the game. Let me move on. Let's do something else. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So you can click on end the game, you know. Let me continue to show you this project, what I did. Okay, so after I played this game one time, okay, I had more hands, you know, say, oh, game today. Instead of game today, they start saying, Kahoot, 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 Kahoot. And then you have a problem, you know, you're not going to spend your whole planning time planning games, you know. So what I thought, because I believe learners should create content, you know, and what I did say, well, you want Kahoot, okay? Why don't you create a game and bring to class, you know? Because the first time I played this game, some students already came with their iPads. So, oh teacher, I installed Kahoot on my device. I installed quizzes on my device. I said, well, how about you creating a game? Because then you give them some responsibility. Yeah, so what were the steps that I used? First, okay, what I did, I gave them a quick demonstration, you know, because not in our school, not all our classrooms have, we don't have a computer lab in some branches, so I just showed them on the big screen how to create a Kahoot, create an account, how to share that game, you know, and I gave them a quick demonstration on how to make a game, right? Or in the school that in the branch we had a computer lab, I took them to the computer lab and they created a game, right? In trios or in duos. Then they created, the first quiz that they created was free. Okay, you can create in English in whatever you want. It can be names or animals or fruit or anything. You know, they created a quiz. I said a minimum of 10 questions, because if you don't establish a minimum, they will make a quiz with 3 questions, for example. And you teach them how to share the game with you, because those platforms allow you to duplicate the game and correct. Like if they make a mistake, you can correct the mistake before playing the game in class, all right? The next step was playing the games in class, all right? So I gave them the mouse, you know, I would log in, give them the mouse so you control your quiz, you know? And we played the game in class. And then the next step was to assign content for them. Let's suppose I was working on animals or names of foods or superlative, whatever. I say, oh, John, who wants to make a quiz for next class? And 2 students would raise their hand, so you make a quiz for next class. And they would make it, okay, send it to me. I would see if there were any problems, and then we would play in class, you know. And it was good because it created certain anticipation. Say, oh, Mateus, did you bring the quiz? Did you make the quiz? Oh, you didn't. If he didn't, if a quiz hadn't been made, you wouldn't play, all right? So I shift responsibility to them, all right? And then we played the quizzes. So what we learned, okay, they were very excited, you know, to play quizzes that they had created, you know, because in some ways I found out that the quizzes that they created were more fun than the ones I would create, you know. And I have some 2 short videos of students playing. This is quizzes. Then I have those other 2 guys. Okay, what I observed as a result of this experience, that they were more motivated and more interested in learning, because they were, it's kind of relating to what Krista was saying, it's kind of flipping, you know, because you made them do something, with the difference that was after class, but they did something at home, they learned more, they studied more, and they brought it to class, you know. They take responsibility for their learning because now it's not up to the teacher anymore to create something and bring to them. So it changes, it shifts the perspective, you know, the responsibility is theirs. You get to know them better because what games allow you to do was to get an insider's view into the classroom culture. Because many of the jokes that they played with each other would come in the games, you know. I told them, oh, we can make an extra question, like a fun question, and then they would make a joke about something that only they knew, because I couldn't answer that question, you know, things that they, from their age, from their group, you know, this was what it allowed me to get. And you get a glimpse of the classroom culture, other things that they like kinds of music, kinds of food, other things that they would bring, you know, and play on words, you know, and you share responsibility with the class, you know, because you're not the sole responsible for playing in class. Like I said, I'm not very fond of playing games every class. And one thing that I observed was that I could learn with them because they discovered tricks on those quizzes that I didn't know of. Like in Kahoot, I knew this, but you can insert a video, okay, when the game starts. So they would insert those caught on camera videos, and they would crack laughing, you know, before the game started. So it was an element that I myself wouldn't have inserted. And when I see the students did that, I say, oh, that's a good idea. And then I started doing that, you know. Or changing, because the rewarding system in quizzes can be changed. You can have different themes. And it was my students that taught me that. They discovered that, something I didn't know, you know. And that was it, okay? Thank you. I'm open for questions. This is a short URL and QR code for the game. All right. If you have any questions, no questions. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Dr. Elaine Marshall. Dr. Marshall is Professor of Education and Director of Language Education Programs at Long Island University, Hudson, New York. She teaches courses in linguistic and multicultural education in face-to-face, blended, and synchronous online formats. Her research interests include culturally responsive teaching, as life, students with limited or interrupted formal education, non-traditional teaching of grammar and instructional technology, especially flipped learning. Contact her for training on mutually adaptive learning paradigm, MALP, and the synchronous online flipped approach, SOFLA. She's also on the board of the Flipped Learning Network.
Okay, thank you, Claudio. All right. This is a very big room and a very small number of participants, but we're recording it, so I'm guessing that there'll be lots and lots of other people listening down the line, right? Okay.
If you want to move closer, feel free to move closer.
Okay, welcome everyone. So am I the last presentation of the day? Everyone stretch. Stretch, stretch, 2 minutes stretch. Wah! Me too, right? My first presentation today was at 9:30. I've had 3 of them today. 2 yesterday and another one Saturday. So, but this one in particular is probably the most exciting one for me. And I'll tell you why. This presentation is really kind of a story. And it starts with TESOL. This started when I went to TESOL in Portland. Was anyone in TESOL Portland? And at that particular convention, there was a delegation sponsored by the Department of State. And for some reason, these folks, who were mostly from countries in the Mideast and Africa, North Africa, were interested in hearing more about flipped learning. And I was selected to do a presentation to them about that topic, since I'm affiliated with the Flipped Learning Network, as Claudio explained. And at that meeting, there was a gentleman from Morocco named KHALID FETHI. And he really loved flipped learning and wanted to make his entire school a flipped learning school. And so we met several times, and we both attended the Flipped Learning Network conference every year, which was called FlipCon at the time. And we decided to work together. In fact, he has a model which I'm going to share with you, a model of flipped learning, and we wrote a chapter of a book that's coming out about flipped learning in EFL settings you might be interested in. It should be coming out later this year, and we wrote one chapter in that book. And I have on there the 2 locations of the International Film Club, which is what I'm going to be presenting to you. So over here we have Winchester, Virginia, and over here we have Berkane, Morocco. And we have an international film club that links the 2, and I'll be talking to you about that project. And if anybody is interested, we just launched it in January, and we're open to growth if you live in a country that would like to participate. Okay. So, is my clicker not clicking? It's pointing. Oh, did I plug it into the wrong place? It's plugged in. It should be clicking. Well, I'll just use the traditional. Oh, it's not even doing that. How do we go from slide to slide? Sorry, we have to advance. This is definitely not the only slide. It's a great slide. I worked really hard on this slide. I had to make the transparency with the map behind it. Are we going to do it? No. I mean, I'm happy to advance the slides manually, but that doesn't seem to work either. So we'll allow everybody else to advance their slides. Yeah, this is the call session. I'll put it in the desktop. Back in business. Thank you for your patience, especially those who are listening to a recorded version, although maybe an editor is going to edit it out, that little piece. Okay. All right. So this is Khalid's school. he has a language school, and it was founded in the year 2000, so it's a fairly new school, OKE, and they teach English and French there. It's in northern Morocco, Berkane, and they have about now 4,000 students. It's grown quite quickly. And they group the students into 4 groups: junior class, 8 to 12, general English class, 13 to 20, and English for special purposes class, adults. I guess 3 groups. Okay. And the group that we worked with is the teenage group, because we were working with a high school in Virginia. So this is their, that's KHALID right there. You can see. Do we have the? Should it work? Yes, there's KHALID right there, and these are some pictures of the students. And this is their web page, their front web page. Do you notice anything right away about the web page? Do you notice that under methodology, what does it say? Flip learning. And over here, links to inspire flippers, read more. So he's definitely organizing his entire school around flip. So, the benefits of what he does with his flip is flipping movies. And the title of the article that I worked on with him is Flipping Movies for Dynamic Engagement. So this is just a slide to review with you some of the benefits of using film for language instruction. And these are KHALID's ideas of what he believes are most important factors. So formal and informal language, you get wise quotes, informative shots or scenes that he picks out, and he gets a variety of accents, and cultural heritage of different communities. And you can see that all of this is from an EFL perspective, from his perspective. And also, he selects films that have a variety of themes for teenagers that might resonate with them. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, this is his model, flipping movies for dynamic engagement. So what he does is he does something very different, and I know we heard Crystal speak eloquently about the model, so I'm not going to go over, flipping, because you've heard a wonderful presentation about flip learning. But what's interesting that he does is the in-flip. So what he does is the movies, the films, are actually watched in class, not out of class. And you might say, well, that's a waste of time, but not according to KHALID. So what he likes to do is he likes to have them get together and have the experience of going to the movies. He even has popcorn, and he has a lot of fun. And he can pause the film at any point, and he can ask questions. He can also take out sections that he finds offensive, which is an issue in the country that he is from. All right, so that's one thing that he does. All right, then in class, also outside of class, then when they're getting ready for the movie, they do lower level Bloom activities. And we also heard about the Bloom's taxonomy and how important that is. So those are outside of class. And then he has a technique called SHAC, which is share, help, ask, and comment, and that fosters interaction in the classroom. And then his final piece is projects in the community, where they take the theme from the film that they viewed and they apply it to some real world problem or real world activity so that they can go out into the community. And he calls those creative workshop projects. Okay, I'm going to show you, if it works, just a minute of a presentation he gave at FlipCon. Now, it's supposed to play the film. So I had it set, now here again, I have it set. I'll just hit this. That's it. I'm just going to play a short clip of it. Oh. So you can see that he's very careful about the films he selects. He tries to pick films that have themes that will resonate with the students. And you see they're homeless to Harvard. That's the one they're watching now, right now. Okay. And he gave a survey to find out if they liked flipping or traditional. And many of them loved the flipping. And then he asked if they liked to watch it in class or at home. They liked watching it in class, which I thought was interesting. And that's KHALID again. And you see he's trying to evoke or go into things. And FFF stands for Food, Fun, First. And then he talks about the skills that they'll gain. Gives life to learning, and I'll end it there. Okay. There's, if you want to watch the entire thing, it's up on YouTube. You can watch his whole presentation, but I just wanted to give a nod to the fact that this is his model and he presents it. So these are the stages in order. Pre-movie, out-of-class activities, they do listening activities, they work on vocabulary, they generally get ready to watch the film. Then they come into class, they watch the film, then they go home and do out-of-class activities that are deeper understanding of the film and its themes, and reflective questions, and they get ready for class discussion. Then they come back to class, and they have questions for each other that they prepared, they help each other, they ask each other the questions, and they do discussion. And then the last piece I mentioned before is out in the community and in-class workshops where they are creative and extend the ideas of the film. So now you have an idea of KHALID's end. That's only half of what's going on here. Enter the other character in the story. The other character in this story is Iron. Has anyone heard of Iron? Yes, okay. I had never heard about it. What happened was, I was looking to collaborate with KHALID and visit him and come to Morocco and visit his school. And I was looking around on the internet and I found this organization that's going to be sponsoring a conference in Morocco. And I thought, wow, let me get to know this organization. And I looked on the internet to find out who was in the organization in the United States, because there's an Iron USA. And I was looking to see if anyone was interested in film. And lo and behold, I got this crazy idea, and I found, let me just show you one more shot of the global collaboration. It's a very inspirational organization if you want to learn more about it. And I found this wonderful woman, FETHI'S, and she runs an international book club. She's a librarian in Virginia. So I emailed her and I said, hey, we don't have a book club, but we're interested in an international film club. Would you like to do that? And she's like me. She says, sure, why not? So we did it, and we just created it in January. It's brand new. And my original presentation that I submitted for this colloquium was going to be basically the whole thing about KHALID and the project with him. But I altered the presentation because now we have the film club, and I wanted to share that with you. So I've added that piece to the presentation. So this shows you the film club, and you can see it's a project for students at the center in Morocco and the John Handley High School in Winchester, Virginia. Started in January, and we're going to be working all spring. And this is what we're doing: communication and language skills, recommending books related to the films, becoming more aware of diverse cultures, exploring the importance of civic responsibility, and leadership skills. And you can see the three of us work together, and there are links to get to the places. So this is the three of us. We meet regularly in Adobe Connect. We record our meetings, we take notes, we have an agenda, and we take this very seriously, the three of us. And we're very different, I have to say. We work respectfully, but the three of us are as different as three people could be. And I find it fascinating to work with two colleagues who have very different perspectives, and we learn so much from each other, and it's been fantastic. Now, our first film was Gran Torino, and I suggested that film. I worked with the Hmong refugees in Wisconsin, and I knew Gran Torino was a fascinating film dealing with Hmong culture. If you're not familiar with Gran Torino, it's a film with Clint Eastwood, and he really evolves as someone who was very, I guess to use the strong word for it, bigoted, but he completely came around, and I don't want to give anything away if you haven't seen it, but you might be interested in that film. And it turned out that KHALID already had that. Remember his collection of films? He hadn't used it yet, but he already had been developing materials for it, so it was very fortuitous. It was new to Faye. And this is just a scene from the film to show you. And I was going to take you to the forum, but the problem with that, and I apologize for that, but the students from Morocco put their last names, and I can't, because this session is being recorded, I won't be able to take you to the forum, but I made, when I found out about that, I made some screenshots today. They're kind of small, but what I'm trying to do is show you, I blocked out any real last names. I'm trying to show you that the kids in Morocco and the kids in the United States are talking back and forth to each other. They're replying to each other. It's a real forum with back and forth. What's interesting is they're talking about the Hmong, they're talking about the film, and so the focus is off of them. It's not so much about, they're not so worried about, oh, my culture, my English. They're joining together to discuss a separate topic, and I think that's a wonderful way to expand your language, is to focus on something else. And I have another screenshot here, and you can see up at the top, that's one student, and then here are the replies from the United States. It lists their school. There's the school in Morocco, and I know you're not reading this, but my point is to show you that there's interaction. Well, here it is. If you want to actually, I blew it up a little for you to see. Again, they're talking about Hmong culture and what they're learning about the Hmong. And here's another page, and one of them actually posted something about the Hmong with a URL. And again, you can see that they're from both schools. They're really interacting. There's the student from John Handley and the student from Morocco at the top. Right? Now, we also had, again, this was my idea, to have a guest speaker for each film. So we had a guest speaker come, a friend of mine from Minnesota, Andy Shong. So you can see this is an Adobe Connect, and we have the students from Virginia on the left, I guess it's pretty obvious, and then on the right you have the class from Morocco, and in the middle you have Andy Shong, and if you look in the lower right, I took notes. Everything that Andy said, I took notes on. We also had a chat running in case there were things people couldn't hear or people had questions. And we recorded the entire session. So that's a recording that we have of the interview. And the students had to prepare questions in advance. And we looked at their questions and we made sure we alternated between Morocco and the United States. They had to come to the microphone and ask their question. In English, of course. All right, and then, I want to show you, again, this is, I want to show you a short clip. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is also because of what Andy says. So listen to what he says. I'm just going to show you a short clip of what he says.
United States, in my youth, back in Green Bay, and even now, even though I got the opportunity to learn and to have the knowledge and things like that, I didn't really feel like I belong here either, because there are still lots of struggles where I have to compromise my identity, my culture, my language, so that I could bridge
being a citizen of the world, not belonging to one particular country. And that's a very interesting theme that came out. He was trying to say that we're all eventually going to be just people on the planet as opposed to from one country or another. And another point that came up that I'd like to mention, I'm just going to go back 1 second, so, is that the students in Morocco found different themes than the students in the United States. And that's why the cross-fertilization was so great. The students in the United States focused on Clint Eastwood's PTSD. He had been in the Korean War, and that was a major theme that they noticed. But the students in Morocco focused on a little bit like what Andy was just talking about, the fact that Hmong are stateless. There's no Hmong land. There's no country Hmong. They have been a minority group everywhere they've been, and that was one of the things that fascinated the students from Morocco. So again, the cross-fertilization is not only about language development, but intercultural communication, sharing different perspectives. It's been a fascinating experience with a lot of takeaways. And then I'm starting to collect data, just getting started with the data. And I got 2 questions I asked the 2 teachers, Faye in Virginia and KHALID in Morocco. I said, what surprised you the most in launching it? And it's so gratifying that Faye was impressed with their English. I thought that was wonderful. And of course, they were very happy to hear that. She didn't expect that they would be as advanced and able to express themselves. She also mentioned their critical and insightful work, working with the themes of the film. And KHALID was interesting. He talked about noticing that his students were slower. They were slower than the kids from the US would be, meeting the deadlines, getting the postings up. But the students from Morocco were sort of taking their time, a little more slow. And part of that, it could be cultural also. And he noticed that. And he also mentioned it could be age, because you can see they were a little bit younger. They're a little younger than the high school kids from the States. The next question I just asked 2 questions. The next was, what do you think your students have gained? And this is preliminary again, but Faye mentioned, actually they both mentioned how many things they have in common. They noticed that the students are finding things that they have in common, and I thought that was wonderful, because this is what we're looking for, right? Globalization, the impact of sharing ideas across nations, which is what we're hoping to foster as TESOL, And then I have a little bit of student feedback. What they think in the corner, if you look in the upper left, and I'm not taking time now, we gave them an intercultural survey as a pre-survey before they even started, asking about what kinds of interactions they've had with other cultures and how they feel about other cultures, and we're going to give them the same survey at the end of the project. Also, we have a survey for each film. So there's the Gran Torino survey, and those are links. So you can, if you get the other version of this, when you get the PowerPoint, you can find the links to those surveys. But here's there was a question on one of the surveys that asked them, just what do you think of the club? So here are some answers. They really like it, and I just picked a few, but all of the answers were very positive and mentioned the friendships, the fact that they're making friendships and they're really learning to get to know each other, and more cultural diversity in their lives, and mutual acceptance, this one mentions here, interacting, and new friends. And you may notice which side is which. The left is the Virginia students and the right is the Moroccan students, okay? But they're definitely enjoying the project. And the next step, this is the last slide, is Marrakesh. We are going, and Faye is bringing some of her students from Virginia, and KHALID is bringing some of his students from Barkhan. They don't have as far to go, but still quite a ways to Marrakesh. And we're going to be presenting at this conference, which is Innovative Technologies for Quality Global Education in Marrakesh. Some of you might be interested in this conference. And I think it's a very exciting initiative, IRON, if you haven't heard about it before. I mean, it's been wonderful. In fact, 2 of the girls are rooming together, one from Virginia and one from Morocco, because they made friends. And I didn't show you, but there was another forum where they did introductions, and there were hundreds of posts in that first one, where all of the students on each side introduced themselves, just like you do in any online discussion. So I didn't show it because it's a regular discussion, but I should mention that. They really got to know each other before they even started with the films. And so a crazy idea just happened. And my big takeaway from this is if you want to do something, just go for it, do it, create it, make it happen. And if anybody else would like to participate, come and see me, because we just have US and Morocco, but this is an EFL setting, so you could be from another country and join us in our International Film Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Well, if I show the movie in class, I don't think my coordinator would be happy. Not even if I said, yeah, "Oh no, I'm just flipping the class." No, that would not
After school
happen.
program. Student club.
Student club, yes. Why not? Oh, is preparation for drama club or something
It's a
like that?
club. It's a
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we now accept questions. If you have any, would you have any questions from the online section? Not yet. All right. So I'd like to thank Dr. Crystal Brody, José Antônio da Silva, Dr. Elaine Marshall for this presentation, and remind you that this presentation is available at callis2017.bbworks.org. So there you will be able to find the recordings. Okay? Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.